using like half a decibel of gain reduction on the limiter, and it went through to my analog chain, but I don't know what was said in my analog chain because I don't know why I can't find recall notes on this particular session, even though I do keep them for all of my sessions.
So the analog will remain a mystery, but but it did go out of the box. I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Are you usually going out of the box, or do you sometimes
definitely went out of the box.
Do you find that you're usually going out of the box?
So 99% of the time, I am going out of the box. And the reason is it's an extension of the sound I know. Like, it's not that there's any individual piece here which I'm trying to work with. It's that I just know the sound of all these pieces working together and how to use them to manipulate the audio.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Is your outboard chain like consistent? It's always this piece into that piece into that piece, or do you kind of like fluctuate the order of the chain, or is it? What does that look like?
No, it's completely static. It's one piece into one piece into one piece.
Right.
It's really weird. I think what happened was when I set up the studio 7 years ago, it was just a matter of resources. Like, I didn't have the resources to purchase a backbone or a switch that was high enough quality to be switching between my units. So they're always hardwired into one another. Then as my chain developed, because it has developed and fleshed out over time between having a Crane Song Ibis in here to having an SSL compressor, a few things that are swapped in and out, it's just been an evolution of that static chain, which you work 7 years, 5 days a week, 10-hour days in front of the desk using that gear day in, day out. You just know the sound that it produces. So I can put a signal through here and I know how to manipulate it. So now I feel like I'd actually be scared to start moving things around. When I get a new piece of gear in, like, I'm very, very conscious of how it interacts with what's going on. So yeah, that's how I use my analog chain. It's just an instrument that I know very, very well. I know where the bung keys are on it. I know when something's a little bit louder than where it should be. I just can feel it through.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I would also be petrified to switch out a piece of gear that I used every single day on every single recording. You know what I mean? Like, it's like people talk about it, like that's how so many mastering engineers have their sound. It's like, this is my outboard chain, and this is what I know, and I know how to use it, and it gets the results I'm looking for. Like I spoke with Pete Lyman on the podcast, he was telling me it's always the same chain. He's one of the top guys. So there's what to be said about that.
Yeah, it's a feel thing, because at the end of the day, when you're working with music, you don't want to be trying to work against the music and work with your gear. You want to be working with the music itself. So I'm not sitting in front of a desk trying to figure out, if I do this on my Varimu going into my EQ, how's that meant to sound? And I'm trying to test out that theory and still having to respect the music. When I've got my chain the way it's set up, I can listen to the music and listen to it and go, it needs a bit more upper mid. I know exactly how to make that happen. Or it's moving around too much. I know exactly how to control that with the exact chain I've got. So it just becomes, it's pretty cool. I feel like I'm like in the Matrix or something, just like re-navigating what's going on, what I'm hearing, and what changes I'm trying to make on the fly.
Yeah. It's like an extension of you. And if something requires a bit more, like, I don't know, out of the box, you would probably go in the box with like one of the, with the Pro Q or something, doing something more wild inside the computer.
Yeah, there's that, and it's also actually really funny in terms of like coloring for analog chain. See, I got the Varimu, and it's something people would consider maybe not colorful unit, but a unit with its own sound or tone. But the reality is, when I'm going through my analog chain,
I love the Varimu. Love the sound of Varimu. Yeah.
But the reality is, when I'm going through my analog chain in terms of the cabling from one unit to the next, in terms of the power source, everything, I'm trying to have the cleanest signal in my analog chain as possible. Because as soon as you start like coloring the sound, or you've got certain tubes that have a certain tone in it, or you're starting to kit things out for a certain vibe, you don't have much autonomy over the vibe of that particular tone. Whereas if you go to something like Calvin Tone Shaper, which is in the box, it's not an analog unit, you can manipulate it any which way you want. And the emulations are really good. The same with the black box audio design, black box analog, is it analog design, or anyway, the black box that
the Plug-in Alliance
BX,
thing. I love that one. Yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Plug-in Alliance. Yeah, But the thing
So
is,
good.
with hardware, you don't have that autonomy. Whereas this one, you've got like a wet dry knob on it, and you can blend things in, use
Yeah.
mid side on the new version. You've got so much more autonomy to color the sound and really refine it. Whereas on the analog chain, I'm actually looking for the cleanest signal path through, and just using the units for their inherent capabilities as dynamic processors and equalizers.
Yeah, yeah. If you had to only do it, if you had to get rid of all of your analog gear and do it in the box, like
Yep.
how sad would you be?
Not too sad, to be honest. Not too sad. To be honest, like in the box, I can do a lot of what I'm doing. I just have the luxury of having the analog
Right.
gear, and I get to squeeze an extra 1 or 2% out of it. Like 7 years ago, when I built this chain, like started building this chain, yeah, it made a difference. But now we're at the point with technology that it would be hard for you to distinguish between my analog master and my digital master, even though the analog one to my ears personally and work process personally would be 1 or 2% better, and I might be able to pick out. But the reality is you can get incredible results in the box, and I think
Yeah.
people who say they
I think
need
it's a
the
I think
analog
it's a
gear,
taste thing also. It's almost like that's your flavor. You know what I mean? Your outboard gear. It's like this is the extra vibe flavor I bring to the master versus what I technically need to do to the song almost. Would that does that sound right?
yep, in some respects, yep. I think it's also as part of the vibe. It's also the vibe of the process of creating it.
Right. It's
So
probably
being
it's
stuck
more
within a
fun,
screen,
Yeah.
it's more fun. It's if like you said, it's an extension of yourself, and if you know it well, it's very easy to navigate. So
Yeah.
rather than like, I got a new mouse recently, and I'm on this trying to learn the scroll wheel. Rather than like accidentally flicking a frequency up on Pro Q3 by 30 decibels and blasting your ears and go, oh fuck, what the happened there? And you're trying to re-navigate your menu and go, oh, bell curve, 12 decibel, this, that, the other. You've got all this in front of you that if you know really well, you know how it's meant to sound. You can just run the signal through it, dial in what you know to help it based on what you're hearing, and then move on, rather than trying to navigate GUIs and menus and stuff, which isn't a bad thing. Like a lot of them are developed really well. I'm just saying part of that that vibe can also be your fluency with what you're hearing and the process of creating that sound in a more efficient manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, dude, the master on the Mega Flower song sounds amazing, and I like that we get a little bit of like nerdy music chat in as well to kind of counterbalance all the business and content stuff we were talking about at the beginning, because I feel like people's like, who is this guy? No, he's like actually like a sick mastering engineer, and check out what he's doing also. I have a couple more questions for you before we wrap this episode.
Yeah,
And
ask.
the first question is, what's next for you? Like, I feel like you're always on a journey and you're super introspective about it. Like, what do you foresee in the future for you?
So got the podcast, got the YouTube, doing more records. Being a little bit more brash now in the going into the future in terms of whenever ideas come to my mind, rather than trying to plan them out meticulously and take months and months. Something I'm doing now and starting is every Wednesday I'm doing mastering roulette, where people can submit a track, and live I will randomly pick one and master it on the spot
Love it.
during a live stream. And I thought about meticulously planning out how I could launch it and do it. I'm like, fuck it. Nope, not doing that. I got the gear. Let me just post an Instagram story. If people want to be a part of it, that's that. So I think you're going to see more of that in the future. Not that specifically, the live stream, but me just sort of executing on ideas with more, just like, hey, let's do it.
Go for it.
Stop making hurdles that are, or building walls around it that you have to do X, Y, Z. I'm just like, no, fuck it. I'm going to do it. Done. Next. Do it. Done. Next.
That's what I love about you. You're just like not afraid to just go for anything you feel like going for, and it's there's no like overthinking any. You know what I mean? Like there is thinking, obviously, and you're obviously like I said, introspective about like what you want to accomplish and stuff. But like in terms of actually doing the things, you just go for it. You know what I mean? I feel like there's so much to learn from that. For the listeners as well.
Yeah. Well, the thing I've learned is like having like I've had heaps of stuff that I've done which has absolutely flopped and went to shit, and I think the benefit of that is knowing that it doesn't hurt you as much as you might think. Because here's the reality. Let's say I do a live stream. Absolute flop. Only 10 people see it. So, who cares? 10 people saw it. You still did a good job. And the opposite to that is more than 10 people see it. Let's say 100 people see it. Awesome. 100 people just saw it. So in my mind, like the worst thing that happens is, actually, the best thing, the worst thing that can happen is last week I set up my mic for the live stream and for some reason I didn't realize, but it was completely fucked. Like the signal was horrible, noisy, like fucking shit, especially for an audio channel. But the audio coming from my desk and what I was explaining was really good. So I had about 20 people watching the live stream and they're all like, the mic is shit, but here's the but, they loved the process. They were like, oh, wow, that sounds so good. Oh, that's a really cool insight. That's a really cool technique. And I'm like, well, the worst thing that could happen sort of happened where people were really fucking annoyed at what they were hearing, but still they enjoyed the content so much so they were still sending me messages in my DMs about it afterwards. So it's like, people, you gotta really fuck up to fuck up. Like you really have to do something stupid and dumb. Like, so that's why I'm saying, just go for it. Worst case isn't really a worst case.
I think people forget things that are flops and remember things that are great. You know what I mean? Unless it's like like a life altering flop, but that does, that's not gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like for like stuff that we're doing. So I feel like the mediocre and boring stuff gets forgotten and the great stuff gets remembered. So you might as well just do it. You know what I mean? Because no one's gonna give you a hard time for something that didn't go as well as you hoped it did. They're gonna give you praise if it goes amazing.
That's exactly right. And I feel like, I get really frustrated, especially at some engineers, because they're so talented, they're so incredibly good, and they've got great ideas, and they just sit on them. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You talented motherfucker, get the hell out there and execute on these ideas, because you're really deserving of having the recognition for, whatever concept they've thought up. Because I'm good at what I do, but I see a lot of other great people that are great at what they do, and I feel like they do build up those walls because they're scared to jump in. I'm like, no, go do it. It's a benefit to everybody, because I think the more talent that's out there, the more people putting themselves out and showing what they can do and helping others and being part of the marketplace that we all work within is healthy. It keeps us on our toes. It keeps us moving forward. It keeps us, like I said, I part of my process with creating content is learning and challenging myself. And, when I've got other people to challenge me, that's even better, because I don't take it as a personal attack. I take it as how the fuck am I going to fix this? Like, how can I improve from it? And
that's the internal engineer in you. Yeah. The problem solver.
Yeah. And so, if you're listening to this podcast, or you got it this far through the podcast, I really hope, like, if you've got an idea that's sort of brewing in the background, you're able to bring it to fruition ASAP. Set yourself a week deadline from hearing this and just do it. Because it's that you've got nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing.
Amen. Well, that was awesome. That was a great point to close on. But I still have one more question for you, and I asked this to you the previous episode as well. And maybe your answer has changed since then, because I asked this question on every episode. But yeah, looking back on your journey, was there something that you would tell earlier Nick, like, hey Nick, maybe don't do that. You'll get to where you want to go faster. Or Nick, keep at that. That's going to get you where you need to go. What would be that one piece of advice that you would tell earlier yourself? Maybe we just answered that question.
Yeah, I think my answer might be the same to the last one. I'd be really curious to know if it does match up. But the fact that I wouldn't change anything, I'm not sure if I said that last time. It's sort of like it's those learning experiences, those points where you actually have to look back and go, okay, why did I do X, Y, Z? Why did I fuck up here? What was that learning experience? That friction, that sort of mentally, it can be negative and not feel good. But I think part of that is the part of the learning experience. So if you don't have those experiences, like I could tell it goes for that saying, the fishing one, what's it called?
Teach a man to fish.
Yeah.
Catch a man to fish.
Yeah, exactly. That one. Yeah. I don't know how it goes. Yeah.
I think it's catch somebody a fish, they'll eat for a day. Teach a man how to fish. They'll feed themselves for a lifetime or something.
Yeah, exactly. So that process of learning through that grit, I wouldn't change. So I would say, I'd say you're on your own, buddy. If I saw myself 7 years ago and